Okay, today's video, we're going to be talking about cash conversion cycle. So before I start yapping on about it, let's actually just go find this definition. We'll just shrink myself a bit. Okay, cash conversion cycle is a metric that expresses the length of time in days that it takes for a company to convert resources into cash flow. So easiest example of cash conversion cycle is, let's say you have a direct consumer e-commerce brand, for example, sake apparel, and it takes the factory 60 days once you place the order to make a t-shirt. And then it spends another 45 days on a boat. And then it gets into your warehouse and takes another 15 days to get checked in. And then finally, you can start selling it. And obviously, when you sell it online, you receive the cash immediately. So that basically means that cash is sitting for 120 days before it converts back to something that you can take out, right? Something that can be used for hiring, ordering more inventory, whatever. An example of an even worse cash conversion cycle is, let's take the exact same scenario and let's say you are now going into retail. And typically when you go to retail, they have a thing called payment terms. So that very rarely will Walmart or Target or whoever say, hey, I'm going to pay you upfront for your stuff. They're going to take it and then they're going to pay you 60 days after they take it. So then it's actually 180 days that basically all this money that you spent on inventory is just sitting there. And then the hard thing is if you're selling regularly, you have to continue to place those orders, which means at any one time you could have kind of lots and lots of cash stuck in inventory, which means less for ads, hiring, whatever, right? So typically when you want to grow that business, it actually sucks up more cash until it reaches a point of critical mass where, essentially there's a cap on how much it grows. Your marketing spend comes down if you have good word of mouth and good LTV and things like that. And then the business begins to start spitting cash, and then you can pull it out of the business as a distribution or fund more growth or buy a jet or do whatever the fuck you want with it. Now, what I suggest is when you start a business and you're a beginner or you haven't started a business yet, or even if you're early, or honestly, this is probably just for a seasoned entrepreneur as well, is you want to figure out how can you make your business as cash efficient as possible. And now we kind of live in a time where you're able to do that. What does that mean? It means that your business doesn't suck cash. It actually spits out cash. And typically these are the best businesses to run because, one, you don't have to be basically living like you're poverty stricken while you're running the business. Two, you can actually pay for more growth. Three, you have more optionality, meaning you don't have to take out outside funding and give away, precious equity. Four, let's say something shit happens and the business doesn't end up selling, but you took and you ran the business for 5 years and you took distributions along the way and it was spitting cash. But then I'm not sure, something bad happens, lawsuit or something bad just happens in the business and it goes away. You've still made money along the way. So that's why these businesses are quite good to run. And it brings me to my first point: is not all businesses eventually exit, especially if you're running a business that's kind of like sub 1 million in profit a year. Probably from a million profit a year to like maybe 2-ish is like a bit of it's not a good place to sell a business because you don't have any buyers, right? If you're sub $1 million profit a year, you can probably get an individual investor. So let's say you have a business that does $500,000 a year profit. You might be able to get and sell it to a person for $1 million or $1.5 million who can get an SBA loan, right? And an individual investor or a bank loan, or they borrow money, or they just self-fund it, right? So you've got that thing. Then you've got the kind of death area, which is, like 700K to right up to like 2 million, where you're too small for an institutional investor, meaning you're probably too small for private equity and, firms like that. So then you're probably right in the wheelhouse of an aggregator, which was great in 2021 and 2022 when there were a bunch of aggregators, but now they're all gone because they all went bankrupt, right? And all the free money ran out. So you've really got a very small pool of people buying your business. And I'm actually in this at the moment. So I have a business now that is sitting in that range that I want to offload to focus on other ventures. And it's quite difficult at the moment to find a buyer for it. Because it's in that hard spot. Now, previously, we actually sold a business right in that range, and it was a little bit easier to find a buyer because of all the aggregators. And funnily enough, that aggregator we sold to is now going bankrupt. So there you go. But I'm rambling on a bit, but not all businesses eventually exit. So you want to set up your business in a way where basically it is spitting cash, so you can take distributions along the way. So if shit hits the fan and you can't sell your business in 5 or 10 years, well, at least you made some money along the way, and then you can roll it into the next project. You want a business that spits cash, not sucks it. And if you have a business that sucks cash, you want to try and figure out a way to make it spit cash. So how? All right, so I'm going to give e-com example because I'm from the e-com world and it's easier, but this could probably be applied to different examples. First thing is first, you want to know, you basically want to get every single touch point. Okay, so first touch point, factory, right? Now, you could probably go one touch point back and figure out where that factory is getting their raw materials from or whatever, but I'm going to keep it quite simple. So factory makes a product. 3PL, right? 3PL ships the product out. Then you have advertising expenses. Then you have employee costs. Then you have, what else have we got? Factory, 3PL, advertising expenses, employee costs, transaction fees, and I feel like I'm missing something, but that's enough for the example. So what you want to do is that all of these touch points, you want to figure out with either negotiation or tools, how you can extend when you actually need to pay for these things. So let's say you order from the factory and it takes 30 days to make your product. So what many people don't know is China have their own interest rates. They typically don't follow the US interest rates as closely as, say, like Australia or Canada do, right? And right now, interest rates in China are lower than the US interest rates. I don't know why I keep saying race. And what does that mean? That means you can go to your China factory and you can say to them, hey, interest rates are 3%. And I'm going to pay you 10% more than what I usually do for the COGS, but I want to pay for them 60 days after they're made. Okay. So if it takes 30 days to get it made, then you've got 30 more days that you've just bought yourself, right? Now, typically that's going to be 30 days on a boat. So you've just broken even. Now, that's probably the one thing I've forgotten is freight forwarding. You can probably do the same process with them, right? So let's say you buy yourself 60 days with the factory, which actually turns into 30 because it costs 30 to make the product. Or you could try and say, I want to pay 60 days after it's been made. So let's just for example's sake, say 60. Let's say hypothetically the freight forwarder's a cunt and says, no, bad luck, you need to pay. So, bad luck there. It gets into the 3PL. Same thing, okay? Can you pay a little bit of a premium? Or if you have done a bit of volume with the 3PL, or you have gotten an introduction from someone who has done volume with the 3PL, you can probably get 30 or 60-day net payment terms. So let's say you now have 30, and then advertising expenses. So you can do two things here. First thing you can do is your American Express, which is, I believe, 45 days. We don't have to pay. And then the next thing that you can do is apply for a line of credit if you're a big spender, or again, using your networking, potentially piggyback off a bigger brand who has a line of credit with Facebook. And then if you have a line of credit that's, say, 45 days or 30 days or whatever, and then you slap the Amex on it, all of a sudden you've created 75 days, right? Employee costs. So typically, like, employee costs are like a bank transfer or a wire transfer. Now we have tools where you can turn a transfer into a credit card payment for a couple of percentage points. So that gives you sort of another 30 to 45 days. And then, transaction fees, let's just leave that because you really can't do anything about that. Now, all of a sudden, you've turned a business which is dog shit for cash and sucks it all up into a business that's really, really nice from a cash flow point of view. It means you don't need as much of a float to run it. And it means once you've been running it for 5 or 6 months and you've built momentum and it's growing month on month, one, you have a couple of options. You can hyper grow it without giving up outside capital, or you can pull out distributions, or you can do both. So this is the kind of business that you want to structure when you're first getting into business. Now, there's another thing that is personally guaranteed debt versus non-personally guaranteed debt. So I'm not going to go into that in this video. Right? But good thing to note with this is what debt is personally guaranteed, meaning if you can't pay any of these people, are they going to take your house and just liquidate it and pay for it that way? And what is non-personally guaranteed, which means if you can't pay these people, the company just goes bankrupt, but then you don't actually have to pay. Now, obviously, that's probably going to maybe fuck your ability to get credit the next time, but you still have your house or things outside of the business. So it's probably a bit too complicated for this video, but again, this is the kind of business you want to run when you're starting out. It's actually the kind of business you also want to run if you're a seasoned entrepreneur and if you enjoy your life and if you like having nice things, because again, it gives you optionality. You can hyper grow your business without taking on outside investors and getting a big line of credit and whatever. You can pull out distributions and live a nice lifestyle while also potentially setting yourself to exit down the line. And what you can do is if your business does fuck up, a competitor comes in and takes market share, you can't find a buyer, these things happen, right? These are highly illiquid assets. So sometimes they just do not sell, right? Most businesses don't exit. You can at least look back at your 2, 3, 4 years that you grew the business and go, well, okay, I pulled out 3 million while I grew this. I didn't get the 8 or 9 figure exit that I wanted, but I pulled out 3 million, bought a pad, bought a car, and now I get to roll it into my next thing. So again, I've rambled on a bit too much for this video. I'm going to try and keep them probably like sub 8 minutes from now on. But again, any questions about this and how to structure this, let me know.